What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, a new law just went into effect that could completely change how millions of Americans store their firearms at home? We're talking fines, criminal charges, and a national debate that's tearing communities apart. This isn't some distant policy discussion. This is happening now, and it affects real families, real rights, and real safety. Buckle up, because what you're about to hear might shock you. Let me set the stage for you. Imagine you're a parent. You own a firearm legally, maybe for protection, maybe for hunting, maybe just because it's your constitutional right. You've always kept it in your nightstand or maybe in a closet. You think you're being responsible, but now the government is stepping in and saying that's not good enough anymore. As of this week, yes, this week, a groundbreaking gun storage law has taken effect in several states across America. And here's the crazy part. If you don't comply, you could face serious legal consequences. We're talking thousands of dollars in fines, potential jail time, and even having your firearms confiscated. So what exactly is this law? Why is it happening now? And what does it mean for you, your family, and the future of gun rights in America? Let's break it all down. All right, first things first. Let's talk about what this law actually says, because there's a lot of confusion out there, and I want to make sure you understand the facts. The new law, which varies slightly depending on the state, generally requires that all firearms in a home must be stored in a locked container or equipped with a locking device when not in use. We're talking gun safes, trigger locks, lock boxes, anything that prevents unauthorized access. And by unauthorized, they primarily mean children and teenagers. Now, here's where it gets specific. In states like California, Colorado, Washington, and Oregon, these laws have been on the books for a while, but new states are now joining the movement. States like Illinois, Michigan, and even parts of Texas are implementing similar measures. The penalties, they range from $500 to $10,000 in fines for a first offense. If someone, especially a minor, gets access to your unsecured firearm and uses it to harm themselves or others, you could be looking at felony charges. We're talking years in prison. Let me give you some numbers to put this in perspective. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, approximately 4.6 million children in the United States live in homes with at least one loaded, unlocked firearm. That's 4.6 million kids who could potentially access a gun without adult supervision. Every year, hundreds of children die from accidental shootings. In 2022 alone, over 1,300 children and teens were killed in gun-related incidents, many of which occurred in the home. That's the backdrop here. Lawmakers are saying enough is enough. We need to do something, and this law is their answer. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets controversial. Gun rights advocates are pushing back hard. They're saying this law infringes on Second Amendment rights, creates barriers to self-defense, and punishes responsible gun owners for the actions of a few negligent individuals. So who's right? Let's dig deeper. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this sounds reasonable. Why wouldn't you lock up your guns? And honestly, that's a fair question. But let me walk you through both sides of this debate, because this is not black and white. Supporters of this law, including child safety advocates, pediatricians, and gun violence prevention groups, argue that this is a common sense measure to protect kids. They point to study after study showing that safe storage dramatically reduces the risk of accidental shootings, suicides, and unauthorized use by minors. Here's a jaw-dropping statistic. According to research from Johns Hopkins University, homes with locked firearms have a 78% lower risk of self-inflicted gun injuries and an 85% lower risk of unintentional shootings among children. 78% and 85%. Those are massive numbers. They also argue that this law doesn't ban guns. It doesn't take away your right to own a firearm. It simply requires you to store it responsibly. Think of it like seatbelt laws or child car seat regulations. It's about minimizing preventable harm. And here's something that might surprise you. A majority of gun owners actually support safe storage laws. A 2021 survey found that 71% of gun owners believe firearms should be stored securely to prevent access by children. So this isn't just anti-gun activists pushing this. It's people who own guns saying, yeah, this makes sense. The case against the law. But now let's flip the script. Gun rights advocates, including the National Rifle Association, Second Amendment Foundation, and millions of firearm owners, see this law as government overreach. Their argument goes something like this: my home is my castle. The government has no business telling me how to store my property, especially when it comes to self-defense. They argue that in a life or death situation, say a home invasion at 2 a.m., every second counts. Fumbling with a gun safe or trigger lock could mean the difference between life and death, and they're not wrong to be concerned. There are documented cases where homeowners needed immediate access to their firearms to protect themselves or their families. In 2019, a mother in Oklahoma used her unsecured handgun to stop an intruder who broke into her home while her children were sleeping. Would she have been able to do that if her gun was locked in a safe? Maybe. Maybe not. Critics also point out that these laws disproportionately affect low-income families. A quality gun safe can cost anywhere from $300 to $2,000. For a family already struggling to make ends meet, that's a significant financial burden. Is it fair to essentially price people out of effective self-defense? And then there's the enforcement question. How exactly is this law going to be enforced? Are police going to conduct random home inspections? That raises serious Fourth Amendment concerns about unreasonable searches. In reality, these laws are typically only enforced after something goes wrong, after a child finds a gun, after an accident happens. So is this really about prevention, or is it about punishment after the fact? This is the heart of the debate. Both sides have valid points. Both sides genuinely believe they're protecting people. And that's what makes this so complicated. Now, let me bring this home with some real life stories, because this isn't just an abstract policy debate. These laws exist because of real tragedies, real families, and real consequences. Story number one, the Michigan school shooting. Let's go back to November 2021, Oxford High School in Michigan. A 15-year-old student opened fire, killing 4 classmates and injuring 7 others. It was devastating. But here's what made this case different. Prosecutors charged the shooter's parents with involuntary manslaughter. Why? Because the gun used in the shooting was purchased by the father just days before and was left unsecured in the home. The parents were aware their son was struggling with mental health issues. They had even been called to the school the morning of the shooting to discuss disturbing behavior. And yet they didn't secure the firearm. They didn't take action. In 2024, both parents were convicted and sentenced to 10-15 years in prison. This case sent shockwaves through the nation. It established a precedent. Parents can be held criminally responsible for their children's actions if they provided access to firearms through negligence. This case directly influenced the push for stricter safe storage laws. Lawmakers said, if parents can go to prison for this after it happens, why don't we have laws that prevent it from happening in the first place? Story number 2, the toddler tragedy. In 2018, a 3-year-old boy in Florida found his father's loaded handgun in a bedroom drawer. He was playing, exploring, doing what curious toddlers do. He pulled the trigger. His 5-year-old sister was killed instantly. The father was charged with child neglect and manslaughter. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But here's the gut-wrenching part. In a jailhouse interview, he said, "I thought I was being safe. I thought it was high enough that he couldn't reach it. I never imagined." That phrase, "I never imagined," is the tragedy, because the data shows us that these accidents are far more common than people think. Every year, nearly 350 children under 18 unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. That's almost one child every single day. These stories galvanize support for safe storage laws. Advocates say, this is preventable. We have the tools. We have the knowledge. We just need the political will. Story number 3, the self-defense dilemma. But let's look at the other side. In 2020, a single mother in Georgia was home alone with her 2 young children when an intruder broke through her back door. She had seconds to react. Her firearm was in a biometric safe in her bedroom, a compromise between accessibility and safety. She was able to open it, retrieve her gun, and confront the intruder, who fled. She later said in an interview, If that gun had been locked with a key or a combination, I don't know what would have happened. Those extra seconds could have meant everything. This is the complexity. This is why this issue isn't as simple as just lock up your guns. Real people face real threats, and their ability to defend themselves is a constitutional right that many take very seriously. So let's zoom out for a moment. What does this law represent in the bigger picture of gun rights, gun control, and American society? First, understand that this is part of a larger trend. Over the past decade, we've seen a significant shift in how states approach gun regulation. Red flag laws, universal background checks, assault weapon bans, high-capacity magazine restrictions. These safe storage laws are just one piece of a growing patchwork of regulations. As of 2025, 14 states and the District of Columbia have some form of safe storage law on the books. That number is expected to grow. States like Pennsylvania, Virginia, and even traditionally pro-gun states like Montana are considering similar legislation. But here's what's fascinating. This isn't necessarily about Democrats versus Republicans. Polling consistently shows that safe storage laws have bipartisan support among voters, not politicians, but everyday Americans. A 2023 poll found that 68% of Americans, including 58% of gun owners, support laws requiring firearms to be stored locked and unloaded. So why the disconnect? Why the fierce political battle if the majority of people support it? The answer is lobbying, political polarization, and single-issue voting. Organizations like the NRA have enormous influence, and they frame any gun regulation, no matter how modest, as a slippery slope toward gun confiscation. On the other side, gun control advocacy groups push for more and more restrictions, which reinforces those fears. The result? Gridlock at the federal level and a state-by-state patchwork of laws that vary wildly depending on where you live. And that creates real problems. Imagine you're a gun owner who travels frequently. In your home state, maybe there's no safe storage requirement, but you drive to visit family in a state that does have one. Are you suddenly a criminal? What if you're moving? What if you're traveling for work and staying in a hotel? These are the practical questions that lawmakers are still figuring out. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Gun rights advocates argue that requiring firearms to be locked up effectively infringes on the right to bear arms because it creates a barrier to their use. If you can't access your gun quickly, they say, your right to self-defense is compromised. Legal challenges to safe storage laws have been filed in multiple states. So far, most courts have upheld these laws, arguing that they represent a reasonable regulation that doesn't prevent gun ownership, only irresponsible storage. But this issue could eventually reach the Supreme Court. And here's where it gets really interesting. The current Supreme Court has shown a strong commitment to protecting Second Amendment rights. In 2022, the court struck down New York's concealed carry restrictions in the landmark case New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. That decision established a new test for gun laws. They must be consistent with the historical tradition of firearm regulation in America. So the question becomes, are safe storage laws consistent with historical tradition? Colonial America had some gun regulations, but nothing quite like this. This is uncharted legal territory, and the outcome could reshape gun policy for decades. All right, so we've covered what the law is, why it exists, the arguments on both sides, and the real-life impact. Now comes the big question, where do we go from here? Let me be clear about something. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to give you the information and let you decide. But I do want to pose some questions that I think are worth considering. Question number one, can we find common ground? Is there a way to protect children without infringing on self-defense rights? Some experts suggest a middle path, tax credits or subsidies to make gun safes more affordable. Public education campaigns to promote safe storage without mandates. Improve technology, like biometric safes that open in seconds. States like Massachusetts have implemented gun safety training requirements. Others offer free gun locks through police departments. Are these compromise solutions, or do they not go far enough? Question number two, what about enforcement? If we're going to have these laws, how do we enforce them fairly? Right now, enforcement is almost entirely reactive. It happens after a tragedy. Is that good enough? Or do we need proactive measures? And if so, what does that look like without violating constitutional protections against unreasonable searches? Question number 3. What role does personal responsibility play? This is a big one. Should the government be in the business of mandating how you store your property in your own home, or is this a matter of personal responsibility? And if we say personal responsibility, how do we address the fact that hundreds of children die every year from preventable gun accidents? Some people say bad parents are the problem, not guns. Okay, but how do we stop bad parents from making deadly mistakes? Is a law like this the answer, or is it education, or is it something else entirely? Question number 4. What about the data? Here's something I find really compelling. States with safe storage laws have seen measurable reductions in child gun deaths and suicides. A 2020 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that states with these laws saw a 13% reduction in firearm suicides among youth. If the data shows that these laws save lives, and it does, is that enough to justify them? Or do constitutional rights trump statistical outcomes? These are hard questions. There are no easy answers, and that's okay. Democracy isn't about easy answers. It's about having these conversations, debating these ideas, and finding solutions that reflect our values. All right, let's get practical for a moment. Whether you agree with this law or not, if you live in a state where it's in effect, you need to know how to comply. So here's what you need to know. 1. Check your state's specific requirements. Not all safe storage laws are the same. Some require gun safes, others allow trigger locks. Some apply only if children are present in the home. Go to your state's government website or consult with a local attorney to understand the exact requirements. 2, invest in proper storage. If you're going to own a firearm, you need to store it safely. Period. This isn't just about the law. It's about being a responsible gun owner. Quality gun safes can be expensive, but there are budget-friendly options. Trigger locks cost as little as $10. Many police departments give them away for free. 3, consider quick access options. If self-defense is a concern, look into biometric or electronic safes that open in seconds. These balance security with accessibility. Many gun owners find this to be the sweet spot. 4, educate your household. Talk to your family about gun safety. If you have children, have age-appropriate conversations about firearms. Demystify guns so kids aren't tempted to explore them unsupervised. Organizations like Project Child Safe offer free resources. 5, stay informed about legal changes. Gun laws are evolving rapidly. What's legal today might not be legal next year. Stay informed. Join advocacy groups, whether pro-gun rights or pro-gun control, that align with your values and keep you updated. So here's where we are. A new gun law requiring firearms to be locked up at home has taken effect in multiple states across America. It's designed to save lives, particularly the lives of children, but it's also controversial, sparking debates about constitutional rights, personal freedom, and the role of government. Both sides of this issue are passionate. Both sides believe they're right. And honestly, both sides have points worth considering. This is the kind of issue that defines our generation, how we balance safety and freedom, how we protect our kids while respecting individual rights, how we move forward as a divided nation trying to find common ground. So here's what I want you to do. Think about this. Don't just accept what you hear on the news or what your favorite politician says. Dig into the data, listen to both sides, form your own opinion, and then, this is the important part, engage, vote. Contact your representatives. Have conversations with people who disagree with you. This is your country, your rights, your future. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button. If you want more deep dives into the laws and policies shaping our world, subscribe and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below. Do you support safe storage laws? Why or why not? Let's have a respectful conversation. Remember, democracy works when we work. Stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.